No mai, haere mai, welcome to Shine Today, musical aficionados. We have a special one for you today. We're going to be speaking with Emily Looker. She is one half of the musical duo that comprises Aro, but she also does solo gigs under her maiden name, Emily Rice. Emily, welcome to Shine Today.
Kia ora, nice to be here.
Nice to have you here. Is that the goal, to just get to the point where you're just Emily? Like, you know, you've got Cher, Emily, you don't have to worry about all these other names. You just be just the Emily that people think of?
Maybe that's where we'll end up.
So look, our Shine viewers who also listen to Life FM and Remo will be quite familiar with your work, but just for those of you who don't know you quite so well, we figured we could do some quick questions just as a quick fire round to get us started. So first of all, pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Camping or glamping?
Oh, camping.
Incorrect. The answer was neither. So that's okay. We can keep going. Favourite festival or gig that you've ever done?
Oh gosh, probably Gardens Magic in Wellington.
Yeah, and why was that?
The most perfect day. The gardens were absolutely full of people, and Aro did a show, and it was just so much fun. Wellington, it was the first time we've ever played in Wellington, and it was a buzz. It was awesome.
I have heard it said you can't beat Wellington on a good day, so maybe the rumours are true.
So true.
And what about your favourite Bible character?
Ooh, I'm going to go with Hosea.
Wow, Hosea, why is that?
Well, that book, Redeeming Love, I'm sure many of your listeners will have read it over the years, but it's a romantic story. It's a story of Hosea, and there's also that beautiful song by Brooke Fraser, Hosea's wife, and just the way that he loved so unconditionally. Just a glimpse of God's heart, I guess. But yeah, that book in particular was kind of, It told the story in a more modern kind of way, I suppose. And then reading the Bible verse or book after that kind of was just like really refreshing. I don't know. I love it.
Yeah, cool. No, I love that too, when people are able to take those universal themes and bring them into a modern context as well. So look, we're not just here to review books, of course, today. We also want to talk about your music. And so, of course, to begin with, how would you describe it? What genre, I guess, would you try and classify it under? And your music as Emily Rice, is that different to what you do with Aro?
Yes. I was going to ask, which one do you want me to describe? Because they really are. Emily Rice is I've been writing music for maybe like 12 years or so now. Well, at least I did my music degree. Yeah, it would have been about, so longer than that actually. But yeah, I've been releasing music since about 2012. And it really has gone on a journey. It's constantly changing. My most recent project I released last year, and that one was kind of moving into the electronic space. It's
Cool.
always going to have like jazz influences. I love like Ella Fitzgerald and old school, old-timey kind of music, even from the 40s and swing 60s and things like that. So that kind of always is somewhere hidden in my music. But
I love to hear that. You're
kinda
talking to a former jazz singer here as well, so I'm absolutely on board with all of this.
So good. And then Aro's definitely a mash of my husband Charles and I and our musical upbringings as well. So I grew up with a lot of pop, jazz, and then he's grown up with a lot of R&B, hip hop, country even, and then haka has been a big part of his life. So it's kind of our two musical backgrounds coming together.
Yeah, well, let's talk about your background then a little bit more specifically for a moment. When did you first realise that you had a gift for music?
I actually have a really specific memory from high school. I went to Rangitoto College, and I played the saxophone. And I remember that the call out went out to find someone to sing with the jazz band, with the big band. And I'd always loved jazz music, and I thought, I'd love to sing that song. It was called Orange Coloured Sky.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was my first time auditioning to do some, I've always loved singing, but it was the first time I'd gone in front of people basically to try for something like that. And I was up against all the known singers at the school and all the, performance people. What is it, like theatre?
Oh yeah,
Theatre
sure.
sport.
Yep, yep.
You know, yeah, they had a lot of confidence and they were brilliant. And yeah, so I was going up against all them, and I remember when I got selected for it, that was a real boost in my confidence, to know that not only mum and dad liked my voice, but other people seemed to as well. So,
Something of a crash, bam, alakazam kind of moment, you might say.
you know it.
That's a high-level jazz
Exactly.
joke, everyone. Look it up on Google later on. So tell me more then about your study for music at University of Auckland. This is fascinating to me as well, because I know some people take a much more informal approach to music, and you decided to do something, I suppose, a little more formally. What was behind that choice there? Why did you decide on that direction?
So I started off with a year at the New Zealand School of Music studying jazz, with vocals as my main instrument and saxophone as my second instrument. Did a year of that and then moved into the Bachelor of Music at Auckland Uni, which was more like songwriting. And the reason I got into music after school was I loved it. It was my favourite thing through school. But in terms of actually like doing it as a career choice, which wasn't really something it's not that common, I suppose. So I remember going to the open day at Auckland Uni with my mum, and I was like, it was either going to be like nursing or teaching or music. And I went to the three different things. And as soon as I think the other two were first. And when we got to the music one, I was like, oh no, this is it, straight up. I can't do anything else. So yeah.
And so when you look at that pathway too, I mean, you talked about it being, I guess it's an uncommon career in one sense, and yet I know of a number of people who have some kind of a musical gift, and maybe they don't make that leap into saying, okay, this is going to be more than just a hobby or an occasional gig with friends on weekends or something like that. So, I mean, do you feel like your degree maybe give you a bit of a foundation to push towards making that a central career, or do you have any other advice for somebody who may be looking to follow in the same footsteps you've taken?
Yeah, it was definitely like, I remember we did a bit of like learning about how the industry works and stuff through uni, which I didn't know anything about, what it is to be in the music industry in New Zealand. And the networking side of the degree was really awesome. I loved meeting like the people who are the radio pluggers who send your songs out to different radio stations, and learning about how to approach festival bookers and that kind of side. And being, I'm quite a extroverted, love to talk to everybody kind of person, and that was quite natural for me to be just like go up to someone when they did a lecture and be like, hey, so you talked about that, how do I do that? And they'd be like, oh, here's my email. And so
cool.
that was kind of a good start. Yeah, I was kind of just like asking, and sometimes it would be great and sometimes it would be like, nah, try someone else or whatever. But it was like, even when we've gone on tours and stuff, it was like, okay, how can we make this sustainable as a career? Like going to play on Stewart Island, for example, like there's a lot of costs to getting over there. And so it was like reaching out and finding out that there's like a arts trust on the island who actually were happy to help other people get to the island to be able to put on a gig, and the hotel were happy to accommodate the people. There were little things that like, unless I'd just like knocked on a few doors, then
see, I love that too, when you're taking a more of an unconventional path. One thing that I've found is that it's amazing how many people would be willing to help you if you could ask them like specifically for what you want. Like, you know what I mean? There's sometimes there's that sense of, oh, I wish I could do something in music. And you're like, well, saying I want to do something in music is like so broad that people don't know how to help that. But if you're like saying, well, I really want to get to Stewart Island to do a gig, then people are like going, oh, well, in that case, talk to these people, somebody that I worked with, right? That kind of thing.
Totally, no. So that was cool. It's definitely been like a thing that you kind of just learn it as you go, and it looks different for everyone. Like I've got friends who are also doing music, and it's like it's such a different journey for everyone. But
actually, one of my favorite quotes on this sort of thing was I remember someone saying a few years ago that commitment's the only path to certainty. You can sit there and think, oh, will it work? Maybe, should I? Oh, I don't know. And yet, until you actually go, all right, I'm going to make this my thing for however long, and we're going to see what happens, you'll kind of never know, right?
Totally, yeah.
So why don't you tell us about your Te Reo Māori journey then as well? So did that begin when you met your husband, Charles, or was that something that had been, say, stirring within you for a while?
I'd say it started stirring in me when I moved to Germany. I had a year where I lived in Berlin, pursuing music over there, and
Wow.
Charles and I had actually started dating the day before I left. So
Okay.
that was fun. But I was learning German,
Yeah.
in anticipation of living over there, and then I think it was partially that moving over to another country and being like, oh, I don't even know the language of the country that I'm from. I should be learning that. And then also like being in a relationship with a beautiful Māori guy who had grown up, as Māori, with Māori being his first language, and just wanting to know more about Aotearoa. So yeah, it kind of all started around the same time. It was the combination of Charles, but also going away from home and realizing, there's so much that I could be like, that's what I want to spend my time doing.
Yeah, and actually listening to you right now makes me think too, sometimes I think the blessing of being overseas is it does help us to recognize our own culture as well. And I mean, not that I can speak for all, Pākehā and New Zealand European people, but I think sometimes it's hard to know, like, well, what is our culture really? Like, who are we as a people? It just seems like that, it's just an environment we're always in. And then you go overseas and realize even how distinct we might be even from other, say, European people or something like that. So I guess it can kind of spark that curiosity, right, about what makes a New Zealander, whether or not they've got fair skin or brown skin or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's so true.
And so what's your aim? What is your goal? Do you have one, or is it more just an expression of that curiosity that's kind of built over time?
With Te Reo Māori specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, my aim would be to be able to speak Māori fluently. Like that would be the dream. I've got a long way to go, but that's also partnered with the fact that we've now got a daughter who is Māori and Pākehā, and so for her to grow up knowing both of who she is me learning her language as well, kind of thing. So learning it so that I can speak it to her, and so that she's around both. English is still predominantly spoken everywhere, so we are trying our best to speak Māori at home. Charles obviously does naturally, with Olive especially, and so since she's 20 months old and since she's been here, it's like the amount that Te Reo is spoken in our home has increased massively because he's just constantly talking to her in Te Reo. So that's been really cool.
What I've loved about the journey that New Zealand's gone on with Te Reo over the last little while as well is how much this has broadened up too. That I think it began as a conversation, I guess predominantly, it looked from the outside, at least to me, as a conversation between Māori and Pākehā about how we interact. But now we're also seeing, say, non-native speakers come to New Zealand, and in some ways they're grabbing a hold of this opportunity even more than maybe those of us who've grown up here, right? That people come from, say, from Asia or something like that, and they're going, oh, this is what we do. Okay, I'm in.
Yeah, fully. It's exciting the way that it's become more just like the norm. Like as of the last few years, it's really picked up, and people are like, "Oh wow, we really need to be. This is really important." That being.
What do you think it brings? What do you think it brings to, say, non-native speakers to learn it as well? For those, say, people immigrating to New Zealand, what do they get out of learning Te Reo?
Well, I guess learning about the land and the language and the people of this land that we get to live on, like it's so important. Yeah, and I think it's a beautiful way to connect with a place that you're in. Yeah.
Okay, on a practical level, we're actually taking some Te Reo workshops here at Rima Media right now as well, and as you say, you've been on your learning journey as well. What have you found has been the most helpful thing for your learning journey with Te Reo Māori?
Good question. I did kura po at Unitec a few years ago, which was a really cool start to kind of just being around the language and learning more about it.
Can you tell us what that is in a little more detail, sorry, for those who haven't heard of that before?
Kura po is like night classes.
Oh, okay.
So it's like 3 hours on a Monday or a Wednesday night, and you're alongside a whole lot of people learning. And it was mostly held in the marae at Unitec, which was really cool. And then I think listening to Māori music, that's been really helpful for me. Like I learn through music. So singing songs that are in Te Reo and I think it's really cool, the anthems and stuff that they've been translating, you know, all the songs that people know so well. And then bringing out a Te Reo version has been a really cool thing, because you know the song already, and so you can kind of piece together what, you know, translating it.
It's a really cool kick, isn't it, when you're learning something like that and you just start to pull things out of maybe stuff you've always heard in the background before, but you hear it with fresh ears, right? And you're like, oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
There's more of a story to it now or something. It's funny
Another
you're saying...
thing
No, carry on.
I was just going to say, another thing helpful I did when Olive was first born, I kind of put around these little, I don't know what you want to call them, little list of words. Like I'd put one above the change table, one on the fridge, and there'd be all these things related to Kai and changing the nappy and stuff like that. And they were just really helpful because they're things that you're saying constantly.
Sure.
Or doing constantly. So it was cool to just have a few things, little sentences that I can say to Olive, and that was cool.
Yeah, very cool. Now, it's funny you were mentioning earlier on how when you were choosing what to study, you mentioned teaching was one of the options and you ultimately chose music. But if we fast forward to today, there is still an education part of your work as well, right? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. I've been vocal tutoring since like maybe, I don't know, 10 years as well. It feels like forever, but doing vocal tutoring from home, and I've done that through some education centres over the years. But Charles is a secondary school trained teacher. He's not currently teaching, but he's currently working alongside teachers who are on there, who are learning to be teachers, basically. But we together as Aro do some work with the New Zealand Music Commission. So we go into different schools across the country and get to spend a couple of days working with music students and helping them with their craft, which is a really awesome thing to do. We're actually doing it this week, going down to Hamilton. So there's constantly cool opportunities coming up to work alongside rangatahi in that space. And then Ako Mata Tupu is another space. Both Charles and I work there. It used to be called Teach First NZ, and that's what I was referring to before with working alongside teachers. So it's basically a scholarship program for people to become teachers, but they're teaching while they're also learning.
Wow!
So it's like really full on, but it's beautiful. All the people on the program are amazing. They've all got a heart for really seeing young people thrive and just do their very best, whatever that looks like. It's maybe not exactly what we think it might look like, but it's just nurturing every single individual as much as you can. Obviously, it's hard.
Yeah.
So many.
But it must be amazingly fulfilling to do, though, right?
Yeah, it's great. My work in that space is the like events kind of coordinating and stuff. So it's really cool. I love it.
Well, let's focus then back on your music for just a moment, because you've been weaving Te Reo Māori into your music, whether as Emily Rice or as part of Aro as well. Many of your songs are bilingual. So, I mean, talk to us about that process. Are you, say, like writing in English first and then translating, or taking a phrase in Te Reo that you want to build, or maybe even a concept from Te Reo that you want to build a song around? How does that work?
Yeah, well, with Aro, who we've been writing both bilingual music since 2017 when we kind of started up, and that I think it's been different. Some songs have happened in different ways, but sometimes what happens is that we write the song, or I'll have if I've got an idea, then we decide that actually we want it to be, that part to be in Te Reo Māori, or it just flows better, or you can describe things in different ways, in a more, I don't know, more like poetic kind of way, I think.
Yeah.
It's quite a metaphorical language as well, so it's really beautiful when Charles does translate some of our songs, and I'm like, oh, that's so much more than what the words were.
Yeah, well, there's a certain, like you say, like a musicality, I think, about Te Reo as well, right? You say compare it to English, and I guess that is going to bring out different musical influences as well as you go, whether you intend them to or not, just by the nature of the sounds of the words and what it's creating.
Yeah, totally. So that like in the studio when we were recording our debut album, I remember one of the verses of Korimako, which has become our currently the most popular song if you go by Spotify stats or awards that it's been nominated for. That one, it wasn't until we got into the studio and we were recording the first verse, which was in English initially, and then it just didn't it wasn't working, like something about it wasn't clicking. And Charles was like, let me just quickly, like, I think I'll just translate this and change it a little bit. And then he started singing it in Tadero, and we were all just like, yeah, that's
the
how
one.
that song goes.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And tell me about the role too in the little time we have left. I'm just mindful of this being such a wide-ranging conversation, but I would love to hear the role that your faith plays in the music that you create as well. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, our life is grounded in our faith. So I think when it comes to writing our songs, with Aro, we actually try and find a Bible verse that we can kind of like, that goes alongside the song, so that we've got that, the word kind of right there in it, embedded in it. And then, but I think naturally, you know, as our faith is such a big part of who we are and how we live, it kind of just naturally is part of it all. I can't sing a song without thinking of the fact that I'm part of a bigger picture and a bigger story. And so, you know what I mean? Like it kind of just, I think it's just noticing that and being aware of the fact that it is so much, there's so much more. Like my little song is, where did that idea come from in the first place, you know? And so I think it's just, it always kind of comes back to God, to be honest.
No, I love
You'll
that.
find him in my songs.
So to finish on a real heartwarming note, one of your recent singles, Kanohi Kite Kanohi, was actually recorded while you were pregnant, right? And now you have a beautiful little girl. So how does parenthood affect your music?
Fun story, actually, the video that's about to roll out was filmed 6 days before I had a baby.
Oh, wow.
I actually missed the question. I was too distracted by...
Oh, sure. So it was, just tell me how's parenthood affected your music as well?
Oh, right, yes. So it's definitely been a lot harder to get into pockets of just creative time that can be a whole day, because obviously with a baby and especially with a toddler now, there is no time in the day other than the time now. She's just started at a kohanga, so that's cool. But it's definitely been a lot more challenging to find those pockets of time when your brain isn't just thinking about your child and you can actually dive into some creative thoughts. But it's definitely easier with the duo, with Aro, because we can do it together. But when it's me on my own, I've definitely found it a lot harder. But things are starting to happen again, so it's good.
Yeah, I mean, you could, borrow a line. Was it Stevie Wonder who put his crying children into his songs anyway? So you could just do that. Like you've already got the backing track. You're half done.
Yeah, she's in the background of quite a few of my demos. I think, so we'll do it.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to share that music video right now. So, Emily, again, thank you so much for joining us and to share your love of music and, of course, your journey with learning te reo as well. So we are going to finish on the song Kanohi Kite Kanohi. Enjoy.
Takes courage, looks into each other's eyes, sees and is seen.